Suarez speaks on his departure from Trackhouse Racing and could be a candidate for Junior Motorsports in 2026, and GMS Racing could be returning to NASCAR competition in 2026. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a couple paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Michael McDowell's 2025 Gamebridge Project Zin scheme that we'll see this weekend at Sonoma Raceway. Not much has changed from the normal Gamebridge scheme, except there's a little bit of differences from the other ones we've seen so far this year. It does look solid. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Sonoma. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Bilicki's 2025 SBC Constructor scheme that we'll see this weekend in the Xfinity Series race at Sonoma. Car looks okay in my opinion. Don't really like the mismatch of the colors, but I think it's nice seeing a new company coming in. It does look okay. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Shane Gisbergen's 2025 Quad City scheme that we're expected to see in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Sonoma. This car looks alright. It's very hard to tell from the photo that's being used, but it does look okay. I do like the look of the colors especially. Looking forward to seeing the racetrack in the Xfinity Series race at Sonoma. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kyle Busch's 2025 Cheddar's Patriotta scheme that we'll see likely at the end of the regular season. Honestly, I think this car looks okay. It looks very similar to other Cheddar's cars we have seen, except there's differences. There's some blue, red, white, and blue. Do like the look of it overall. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack later this year. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about green flag finishes. Now, prior to the NASCAR Cup Series race at Chicago Street Course after Atlanta Motor Speedway, it was reported by the NASCAR Insights account, I believe on Friday, that we had 7 straight green races in the Cup Series have had 25 plus long green flag runs to end a race. This is the first time that had happened since the fall of 1998. What's really impressive is that early in the season, we had a lot of races end in very short runs. They go back to like Phoenix, where we had the overtime finish, and we had a lot of overtime finishes at the beginning of the season. But now you've been seeing a lot more frequently, a lot more green flag finishes, which is really, really good to see. As much as I think a lot of us like restart some of the chaos on that, I'd rather have a long green flag finish to really end the deal. And I think it's good that we're seeing more of those consistently, especially in the Cup Series. I think that's really, really good to see. And I'm glad to see we've been seeing a lot more of the consistent green flag finishes, because I think that's the best thing overall for the sport when it comes to is having more consistent green flag finishes overall, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about NASCAR Classics. As it was reported by the NASCAR Classics page that they have uploaded 14 new races to the NASCAR Classics page on Friday. This includes all 5 of the races from Amazon Prime, including the Coca-Cola 600 and the 2025 Viva Mexico 250, 2 races from 1998, 2 races from 2001. I think the 2002 Aaron's 499 was uploaded as well. A couple races from 2006, and I believe a race from like 2008 or 2009 was uploaded as well. I think the NASCAR Classics page, I praise that website quite a bit, and a good reason for that is because they've been doing a lot of really good things when it comes to the page, and I love all the things they've been doing with that page overall. They also uploaded recently a couple old Classic Truck Series races, and they continue to upload the page and update the page over each week. So I love what they're doing to the page, and I hope to see some more exciting races in the future. I hope they get like some 60s and some 70s races and maybe some 80s races in the future, but I'm glad to see the page continues to be uploaded and updated with new races on the page. Really exciting stuff, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Indy 500 sales. As it was reported by Adam Stern, I believe it was on Wednesday, that he updated what were the top 5 from Indy 500 sales for 2025 for this year's Indy 500. Not shocking, surprising, number 1 was Pato O'Ward. Number 2 was Kyle Larson. Number 3 was Joseph Newgarden. Number 4 was Alexander Rossi. And number 5 was Scott Dixon. What's surprising is that the 2 guys who've dominated this season, that being, of course, Alex Palou and Kyle Kirkwood, those 2 were not even in the top 5. It doesn't surprise me to see Pat O'Ward up there. Pat O'Ward is the most popular IndyCar driver that is a full-time driver in IndyCar currently at the moment. And when Kyle Larson comes down and runs IndyCar, it's not shocking and surprising to see him go out there and be inside the top 5. And I think if he runs more IndyCar race in the future, which we're not probably going to see him run the Indy 500 at least for the foreseeable future. If he does it again, though, I think that number will go up very, very soon. Nonetheless, I think it's really nice to see those numbers, especially for the Indy 500. And I'm not shocked to see some of the Aaron McLaren guys get up to the front of this, considering how big they are on that front, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, we're going to be talking about Shane Van Gisbergen a lot this week in videos coming up soon. But it was reported by the NASCAR Insights account on Saturday after the NASCAR Xfinity Series race had concluded that Shane Van Gisbergen became the 6th driver to win for Junior Motorsports in 2025. That is the most by a single team in NASCAR Xfinity Series history. Junior Motorsports has been the fastest organization so far this year. Justin Allgaier has picked up 3 wins so far this year. Connor Zilisch, who's been close to Allgaier in recent weeks, he has scored 2 wins. Sammy has picked up a win so far this year. Kyle Larson has gotten a win with the team. And then, of course, we've seen Shane Van Gisbergen pick up a win with the team and organization. And there are probably going to be more guys going and winning for this organization down the road. And now SVG has joined the list of drivers who has won for this team. He's been extremely dominant at the Chicago Street Course, so it's also not shocking and surprising to see Shane Van Gisbergen be as good as he is at this track. He's always really good here. He shows really great pace and speed and always put together some unbelievable and great performances when we come to road courses in particular. But the continuous domination, I think it's pretty impressive what he continues to do. Good to see him become the 6th driver to win so far this year. I don't think it'll be the last time we see him win Xfinity. He might win the Xfinity Series race at Sonoma this weekend. I think he's got a really good chance and opportunity and will be a factor, definitely get it done in the Xfinity Series race at Sonoma later this week. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Matt Kenseth. As reported by Dustin Albina from JSki and NASCAR.com, there was reported that Matt Kenseth has formed a really good friendship with Erik Jones in recent weeks and is providing a lot of guidance to Erik Jones throughout the 2025 season. Matt Kenseth has been part of the Legacy Motor Club team since last year, and while last year in 2024 was not a great season with this group working together, we have seen a lot of improvement from the Legacy Motor Club team so far this year. Erik Jones is currently sitting around 18th or 19th in the regular season standings, and after the Cup Series race at Chicago, John Henry Machekas also jumped up inside the top 20 in the regular season standings. This team was out to lunch last year. They were really struggling for consistent pace and consistent speed on a week-by-week basis, but I think they've been arguably the most improved team in NASCAR Cup competition, and I don't really think it's that close at this point. I think if they just continue at the speed that they're doing it right now, it would not surprise or shock me if you see one of these cars from Legacy go to victory lane by the end of the year, especially if how good Erik Jones has been at Darlington before. I think he could be a major factor to go out there and pick up a win at that track. But I think it's so impressive to see what they're doing on a week-by-week basis. A Legacy Motor Club team, they continue to show some really good things right now, and they're consistently finishing inside the top 10, inside the top 15 as well. I've seen them up front a lot more frequently than I used to see many years ago, and it's nice to see the 43 car really competitive again. It's also good to see John Hunter, who had a really bad year last year, having generally a really good season. I love seeing performances from these guys. They're doing a really good job. There's also, of course, talk that Jesse Love might be going there next year if they do expand to a 3rd car, but it all depends on what happens with that charter currently at the moment and with the loss with Rick Ware, which they had that purchase recently. But nonetheless, I really like what I'm seeing currently at the moment. I love the performance that they're showing, and I think there's been a ton of improvement from the Legacy Motor Club team so far this year. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Team Penske. As it was announced by Team Penske, I believe it was on Friday on the 4th of July, that they've made some changes to the overseeing part of the Team Penske organization on the IndyCar front. As it was announced that Jonathan Duguid would become the president of Team Penske for the remainder of the year in the Team Penske organization. He will continue overseeing the IMSA program going forward, but he will also continue overseeing the IndyCar program as well. I believe also another person from maybe the NASCAR side might be jumping over to help them as well. On the NASCAR leadership side, Travis Geisler and I believe it was Tim Kennedy or someone like that are still going to be continuing to run the NASCAR operation, so nothing's going to change on that front. We talk about the IndyCar side of things, and the IndyCar program for Team Penske this year has been a massive struggle. They are having their worst statistical season in nearly 30 years, since like 1999 or 1998. And it's been really kind of wild to see how far this team has fallen off a cliff, because they basically had the clean house. They got rid of Tim Cindric recently. They, of course, got rid of Kyle Moyer, who's now working with Nolan Siegel, and we've seen Nolan Siegel show a little bit of improvement over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I think that Jonathan Duguid, who's done a lot of good things to the Penske Porsche program in IMSA, I think he's going to help Team Penske, at least on the IndyCar side, at least show a little bit of improvement. Because I think they want to end on a really positive note. I think they are going to be factors this weekend at Iowa in the doubleheader, especially because Penske's oval program is generally really good. But it's been so shocking to see this team be as far off as they've been on the road course program. They haven't won a race this year. And it's shocking considering every year you think of them being championship contenders, but right now they don't have the championship caliber pace and the championship caliber speed. So it's shocking to see that, but I think bringing Jonathan Duguid in, who has a lot of veteran experience, I think he's going to provide a lot to the table, and I think he's going to do a really good job and be an asset to really helping Team Penske get better overall into the future. I think it's a good decision to bring him in. I think he'll do a good job helping Penske as they continue to clean house over there at Penske currently at the moment. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Justin Marks. As it was announced yesterday afternoon that it was announced that Justin Marks will drive the number 87 Red Bull Chevrolet that Connor Zilisch has been driving at the Goodwood Festival in the next couple of weeks. The Goodwood Festival is one of the biggest events that takes place in England every single year, and it's always a major event that takes place. Jimmy Johnson has participated in it, and many drivers and legends in particular of motorsports go out and try out the Goodwood Festival. I believe other people from Red Bull, I think other teams are going to be at Goodwood Festival coming up really soon. But what's so important about this is that this 87 Next Gen car is going to get the chance and opportunity to be shown on a larger scale. And Justin Marks is also someone who has some success in NASCAR. He, of course, picked up a win in 2016 at Mid-Ohio and ran in NASCAR for many years. But Justin Marks also was a really good road course racer in the 2010s and also in the late 2010s as well. And I think getting the opportunity to see Connor Zilisch's car go out there and get on the racetrack with the Red Bull sponsorship, I think that is really an awesome thing to see. And I think that's going to be a really fun thing to see, especially if you watch the Goodwood Festival every single year. So I think this is a really cool opportunity to get to see that car out on the track at Goodwood. And I hope we do see more next-gen cars in the future get the chance and opportunity to like maybe some of the other Trackhouse cars. Maybe one of Shane Van Gisbergen's cars gets a chance and opportunity, considering how dominant he was during the weekend in the Cup race and the Xfinity Series race as well. But I really love this. I love when we see stuff like this happen every single year, where we get to see really cool vehicles and really cool initiations and old school vehicles get the chance and opportunity to go out there and try something like this. And I think it's really cool that Justin Marks gets this opportunity to go and do something like this, because I think it's one of the best things that we've seen for motorsports in quite some time. So really good stuff overall, and pretty excited to see that that car will get the chance and opportunity to be a Goodwood Trackhouse continue to do some really impressive and great things, and they continue to move the needle and make moves for NASCAR and try to grow the sport. That's something I love about the Trackhouse Racing team and organization as well. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Max Verstappen. As it was reported by Adam Stern on Wednesday that there has been a lot of talk and conversation around Max Verstappen's future in Formula One at Red Bull currently at the moment. As has been reported by Sky Sports Italy on Wednesday that Max Verstappen could be rumored to be headed to Mercedes in the 2026 season. Now remember, Max Verstappen technically has a contract with Red Bull through the 2028 season, but he does have an exit clause for the end of this year. If that number one car continues to struggle in Formula One like it has so far this year and Red Bull continues to struggle, Max Verstappen could leave the team overall and go to another team like Mercedes. Now, George Russell also commented on it during this week during the British Grand Prix, and he kind of talked a little bit about it. He does feel like his future is set currently at the moment. They're still working on a contract extension with George Russell, and if George Russell does get that contract extension with the team, I don't expect Max Verstappen to go over there if he does get the contract extension, but we all thought the contract extension for George Russell was going to be done at this point, and that contract extension is still not done at this particular moment and point. And look, Max Verstappen has been carrying the Red Bull car coat so far this year. We all remember back in 2022 and how dominant that Red Bull car was. Max is winning races on a week-by-week basis. He was contending for wins on a week-by-week basis. And Max is still doing a fantastic job in Formula One. He's still third in the points right now, only behind the likes of McLaren, but he is carrying that car. That second car, which has been driven by Yuki Tsunoda in the last few months, he's really struggled so far this year in particular, and I think we all have come to realize, especially since they've lost a lot of their key people who have gone to other organizations this year, like Jonathan Wheatley, for example, and losing some of the big names who've gone over to Aston Martin, like Adrian Newey. Losing those big name individuals can really affect the team and organization. If you don't have everything kind of set overall in general, and you continue losing people and blame your drivers, even if your team is the problem in general, that is not going to be good for morale, and it's not going to be good for chemistry. So I think for Max Verstappen, the overall goal is, do I want to stick around with Red Bull for a couple more years and try to play out for a few more years in Formula 1, then get the chance and opportunity to go somewhere else and race? Or do I want to go to Mercedes and have an opportunity maybe to win a little more consistently? You may not be at the top of the chain like you've been with Red Bull a few years ago, but I think if you can get the reliability of that car good, I think it's more reliable than the Red Bull. I mean, the AlphaTauri car, the Racing Bulls car, is actually quicker than the Red Bull car currently at the moment right now. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Max Verstappen decides to do going into the 2026 year. Does he want to stay with Red Bull, an unreliable car? Or does he want to go to Mercedes, a car that can be also unreliable as well? We're just going to have to kind of wait and see what happens on that front, but I think it's going to be an interesting story, and we'll continue to follow upon this story as time progresses and goes on. It is definitely something to watch for going forward into the future. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about NASCAR 25. Now, a couple days ago, I believe it was on Wednesday and Thursday, a lot of drivers and a lot of industry personnel got the chance and opportunity to play NASCAR 25. And a lot of the people that played the game for the first time expressed some really good comments around it. One of those is being Noah Gragson. He basically said that he got an opportunity to play the new NASCAR 25. He says it is the best game that he has played in 10 plus years. Now, Noah Gragson, something to note about his comments, he actually had comments on NASCAR 2 when it came out initially. He said the game was not going to be very good, so I actually trust Noah Gragson's comments, but Sammy Smith had a lot of positive comments to say. Roger Krug also had positive comments to say. Ty Majeski earlier this week had some really positive comments to say as well, and a lot of the industry personnel like Andrew Curlin, who does work for Dirty Mo, and I believe Ryan Williams, who works for Junior Motorsports, he also got the opportunity to play, and he said he really enjoyed the game that is coming out. Now, obviously, there are some people that are saying that they were paid off to say this. I'm not entirely sure. They actually might have had these legit positive comments, but I think a lot of people are generally going to question it because these people do work in the industry and they get paid by these people to go out and try something out. But I really don't know if they were paid to say this kind of stuff. It looks like a sponsor deal from the tweets, right? But I personally don't think that they were paid off to say something like this. I generally think that they had positive thoughts about the game and they really, really enjoyed it. And, you know, the more this kind of stuff comes out, the more information we get with this game, the better I think it's going to be. We're still expecting to get a lot of information around the game for NASCAR 25 soon. I believe the rosters and the driver lineups are going to be announced at the end of the month. We're expected to get a gameplay trailer, I believe, sometime at the end of next month during Daytona week, if I'm not mistaken. So about 5 or 6 weeks from now, we should be getting more stuff coming out really, really soon. I really think that the people should, again, have expectations not super extremely high at this point. I think the game will be good, don't get me wrong, but I'm not expecting to be like NASCAR Thunder 2004. If it's like NASCAR Thunder 2004, one of the greatest games ever, I do think that it will be one of the best games we've ever seen. I don't know if it's going to be that good, but I do have some faith and confidence. I do think the people at iRacing, they're not playing around. They want to release a good game, and I think they're going to do what they can to try to release as good of a game as possible. I hope we can get a really good NASCAR game, because if we get a really good NASCAR game, I think that'd be the best thing for the sport overall currently at the moment. So I'm excited for the game, don't get me wrong, but I do want my expectations to be not extremely high at this moment, because if we have our expectations high and they don't deliver, then people are going to question the game at this point. So definitely excited about it. We'll see how the game is going forward. Hopefully more information does get released really, really soon. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Corey Heim. Now, Corey Heim, we all thought coming this weekend was one of the favorites from the drivers who were in the open section that was actually going to probably make this race very easily. But unfortunately for Corey Heim, in shocking and surprising fashion, he actually was the slowest of the 5 open cars that qualified for the NASCAR Cup Series race at Chicago. The 5 cars that have been qualified were, of course, Corey Heim in the 67 car for 2311 Racing, Will Brown in the 13 car for Colleague Racing, Catherine Legg in the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports, Austin Nolan in the 33 car for Richard Schultz Racing, and Josh Bilicki in the 66 car for Garage 66, also all the MBM Motorsports team. And why this was shocking he DNQ'd is, one, Corey Heim's been really good at road courses, especially in the Craftsman Truck Series. Corey Heim just won the truck race at Lime Rock like a week or so ago, so I thought it was going to be a cake and a walk in the park for him to make it into the field. But he hit the outside wall, and unfortunately crashed the car a little bit. Now, he nearly got in and was only about 1/10 off of Catherine Lake's lap, because Catherine Lake basically, unfortunately, she also hit the outside wall as well and got some damage on her car, and she had to go to the rear of the field for the Cup Series race. Now, obviously, there's going to be people saying, oh, Corey Heim then shouldn't be in the NASCAR Cup Series field if he can't make it through the field. And I get some people are saying that, but Corey Heim is still a way too good driver to be in the lower series currently at the moment. And at the end of the day, you are going to make mistakes like that where you're probably going to have mistakes and you're going to take yourself out of a contention and an opportunity to make the field. What's also really big about the story is Catherine Lake making the field. There's been a lot of people that have doubted Catherine Lake. In a video that you're going to see tomorrow, we'll talk about a really impressive finish in the Cup Series race at Chicago. But for Corey Heim, yes, it is disappointing to see that he did not make the NASCAR Cup Series field at Chicago. Because again, I think of Corey Heim being one of the best road course racers in the NASCAR field in general. You look how good he is in the Truck Series. He beat some guys that are really good. He beat Cam Waters. He beat guys in that field like a Jordan Taylor, for example, and he dominated the Truck Series race. And I get the truck competition isn't as strong as like the Cup field is on road courses, but he had really good speed in practice too. It's not like he had really bad speed. His speed in Cup practice was really, really good. So it was definitely really shocking and really surprising to see him make that mistake and unfortunately failed to qualify for the event. It's definitely unfortunate for sure because, again, I think he had a car that was absolutely capable enough to make the field on pace and speed. And it's unfortunate to see him not get that chance and opportunity to make the NASCAR Cup Series field at Chicago. So disappointing stuff for sure. Again, Corey, I don't know what his next Cup start is planned for this year. I think he'll have more starts before the end of the year. I really hope he does get more opportunities, and I'd love to see him have another opportunity at road course to try to redeem himself and get that redemption to make the field in the future. It was unfortunate to see him not make the field this time around. I think he'll look to try to get that redemption and try to make more fields going forward into the NASCAR Cup Series. Hope, because I think he should be full-time in Cup right now. I think he's better than what he showed at Chicago. Again, I hope he gets another chance at opportunity in Cup. I don't know what the remainder of his schedule is going to be. We'll see if he does make more starts in the Cup Series in the not-so-distant future. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Sammy Smith and Kris Wright. Now, if you watched the NASCAR Xfinity Series qualifying from the Chicago Street Course, you probably saw the incident between Sammy Smith and Kris Wright. Now, basically during qualifying, Sammy Smith was actually putting together a really strong qualifying performance and was very, very close to having a chance and opportunity while not maybe getting the pole against Shane Van Gisbergen, who won the pole for the Xfinity and Cup races, by the way. He had an opportunity to maybe start inside the top 2 or top 3 and was likely going to start inside the first few positions. Unfortunately, Kris Wright, who was the slowest car in the field on pace and speed in this qualifying session, he unfortunately held Sammy Smith up during qualifying. Now, with how confined the Chicago Street Course is, it is really tough and really difficult to pass, especially cars that are really that far off the pace like Kris Wright was during the qualifying session. He was nearly 5 or 6 seconds off in qualifying. He had some sort of brake issue that affected his car. Sammy Smith, of course, got held up by him and lost nearly second and never got the chance and opportunity to improve his time. And Sammy Smith was not very happy with Kris Wright on the radio. And he had a little more of a calmer approach when he spoke to Kimmy Kuhn. But basically what he said was he called Kris Wright an idiot. He basically said, "What are you doing? This is a really stupid move on your part. You are holding me up and you screwed my lap up." Now, in this case and situation, I can't fully go on Kris Wright because what's funny is Kris Wright actually was one of the 2 cars that failed to qualify for the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. Sage Karam was the other one to fail to qualify, but Sage had really good speed, but Kris Wright was really low down in the owner's points going into this event and has continued to struggle so far this season. Coming into this year, we all kind of knew Kris Wright was not going to be good in that car. When he replaced Anthony Alfredo, my expectations are very low, but Jesus Christ, that car last year was contending for a playoff spot with Anthony Alfredo. Anthony, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated drivers in NASCAR and can get the best out of equipment from time to time, especially lower tier teams. He has had a struggling season with Youngs, but he's taken that car into good places. Kris Wright, meanwhile, has either gotten involved in crashes or incidents on week-by-week basis, or he just is really so far off the pace and took out one of the guys who could have been Kyle Larson in the Xfinity Series race at Texas Motor Speedway. I just think when you think of Kris Wright, that guy, in my opinion, especially after this, there needs to be reconsideration for him being in that car. I think there should have been reconsideration for him being in that car after what happened in Texas about 2 months ago, but for some reason, the team at Our Motorsports decided to go ahead and keep him behind the wheel, which I didn't really understand that, to be honest. I think it was very questionable that they decided to keep him behind the wheel. And I also understand Sammy Smith's frustration, but I also understand that Kris Wright almost didn't really have anywhere to go in that situation. But I personally think that for Kris Wright's sake, if you see a faster car behind you, don't go into the racing line. Get off the line. Everyone else is at the right side of the track. And for some reason, he was in the racing line. I think that's where Sammy Smith's frustration was that he was trying to put on a heater and have a chance to get a better lap at that point, and instead he's getting held up and doesn't get that chance. And I think that's where the anger came from Sammy Smith, is he had the opportunity and Kris Wright just unfortunately kind of screwed him at that point. And I'd be a little frustrated too if I was in that position where I have a car that's capable enough to get the pole in the Xfinity Series, and instead I don't get the chance and opportunity because Kris Wright unfortunately holds me up. I think that's where the frustration lies for Sammy. He wasn't as angry once he got interviewed, but I understand where his anger was because he shouldn't be held up like that by someone like Kris Wright, who's been terrible in that car this year, in my personal opinion, who should not be behind the wheel of that car because he's been so bad so far in the 2025 year. But that's my opinion. I think Kris Wright should be out of that car. It shouldn't be racing regardless of incidents on the racetrack. Now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story in today's episode as we're talking about Will Power. Now, Will Power Racing was on the Stacking Pennies podcast with Corey LaJoie, I believe it was earlier this week. And Matt Archuleta actually was able to put up the clip from that on his Twitter page and showed that Will Power has actually expressed interest in racing in NASCAR. He's been open to doing some stuff. Apparently, he's been contacted by someone about maybe having an opportunity to race in Portland at the end of this year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's not sure if he's going to do that at this point, but he is definitely interested and is down to run maybe an Xfinity race or NASCAR race in the future. Will Power is someone who, of course, has been competing full-time with Team Penske currently at the moment, has been with the Team Penske organization since 2009. But we all know currently at the moment, if you pay attention to IndyCar, that this could be the final season for Will Power in IndyCar. It's been a really frustrating year. I've talked about Penske, but they have been having a terrible year so far in 2025. And there's a lot of talk and speculation that David Malukas, who currently drives for the sister team at AJ Foyt Racing, there's a very good chance that you're going to see David Malukas potentially join up in the 2026 season and take over that seat from Will Power. And Will Power could be out of IndyCar at the end of this year. I would absolutely love to see more of these guys from IndyCar come over and race in the sport. We all know that Scott McLaughlin has expressed interest in maybe doing the double in the future, maybe running the Indy 500 or Team Penske, and then maybe getting an opportunity with a team like Trackhouse, for example, considering that he drove for Trackhouse in the Rolex 24 in the AF Course organization, the number 91 car. He was teammates, of course, with Connor Zilisch and Shane Van Gisbergen in the event, and they showed some good speed, but did not have enough to get up there and win in their class, but did show some really good speed in the event. And we've seen other drivers from like the parts of Australia and New Zealand come over. Of course, Shane Van Gisbergen has come over, had a lot of success. He's picked up a ton of wins as of late. And you think about the success so far of the other guys. We've seen Will Brown come over recently. Brock Feeney was rumored to come over and race. We haven't seen Brock Feeney make a start yet. We still don't know what races he exactly is going to run if he does make starts. And Jack Perkins, who had an unfortunate run in the Xfinity Series race at Chicago, we've seen him come over and try his footing. But I want to see more guys from the IndyCar world come over and race. We've seen Santino Ferrucci come over and make starts. Alex Poe is another driver who's expressed interest in maybe making a NASCAR start or two. He said it wouldn't be on an oval at this point because he feels he would get his butt kicked, but he said if it was a road course, he would absolutely love the opportunity to go ahead and do that. In general, I want to see more of the crossover in the sport. Maybe more NASCAR drivers coming over and do IndyCar in the future like Kyle Larson did. I mean, Kyle Busch is still down and would love to do the Indy 500 in the future. I would love for that. So if Will Power was to come over racing NASCAR, especially on the Cup side of things, what team would he go to? I think it's a no-brainer at this point. I mean, many people are going to say Team Penske, but I don't see Team Penske running a fourth open car like they did for Austin Cindric in 2021. It would likely be the Project 91 number 91 car. Now, Project 91 has only made one start so far this year in 2025, and that, of course, was for Elio Castroneves, a former teammate of Will Power, when he attempted to run the Daytona 500, made the Daytona 500, of course, the Open Provisional, showed some pretty good speed, got a top 5 in the ARC event, but unfortunately got caught up in a crash and incident. And we've not seen that car run much because that is technically the number 87 car that Connor Zilisch has been driving this year, who we'll talk about later this week. But I think for Will Power, I absolutely would love to see Will Power come over and make some NASCAR starts in the future. I don't think he'd be like instantly successful if it happens, but I think it'd be really, really big for the sport. Will Power is not like a household name like Max Verstappen is or like a Valentino Rossi is, but Will Power is someone who, in my opinion, is one of the best IndyCar drivers we have ever seen. And I think that you have more of this crossover down the road, the better I think it's going to be for the sport. But he's got Scott Dixon who's expressed interest in maybe doing the Daytona 500 with Legacy Motor Club in the future. And in general, I think having someone like Will Power come in and maybe get the chance and opportunity would be a huge thing for the sport going forward. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see if someone like Will Power gets a chance and opportunity to make a start in NASCAR in the future. But I want to see it happen, and I want to see more crossover in the sport going forward into the future. Hope it happens. Hope we do see like a Will Power come over and race in NASCAR in the not-so-distant future. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about a lot of rumors around Dodge and Ram. So we all know at this point that Dodge and Ram are going to be returning to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in 2026. And it was reported by Adam Stern on Wednesday that Stellantis owner has given Tim Kunickis the additional duty of overseeing all American brands and announced it's bringing back its street and racing technology platform. This will be around the Chrysler brand, the Dodge brand, I believe some of the Fiat brands as well, and the Ram brand. I think also maybe Mercedes and a couple other brands that are part of the Stellantis brand as well. This is something that is really, really huge. They're bringing back the street and technology side of things. They're going away from the electric stuff currently at the moment. And this is really, really huge. He'll be overseeing it. He is one of the biggest reasons why the Ram program is coming back in 2026 to the Truck Series. And we're starting to see a lot more of the sales go up. There was a report that came out very recently that since that announcement, there's been about 10 or 12,000 sales, I'm pretty sure, in regards to Ram basically getting an increase of sales. And they've gone up drastically throughout the year because of Ram coming back and bringing back the Hemi V8, which of course will be returning to a lot of their street cars going forward into the future. And this leads to the rumors as well. We obviously know that Dodge is looking to bring back their Cup Series program around the 2027 season. They did talk about the charters, which I don't really understand how they didn't know about the charter system, considering the charter system has been around for a very long time. But we're still waiting on what teams could switch over or if a new team could come in perhaps. We all remember Bill Elliott's team going over to Everham. That team joined up in 01. A couple other teams when Dodge came in. Chip Ganassi came in and basically bought up the Felix Sabates team, the Sapco organization, and turned that into a pretty successful team in 2001. Other teams kind of switch over to Dodge, like the Petty Enterprises organization switched then. But then you think about what other teams now could switch. Everyone is leaning toward Trackhouse Racing at this point. Trackhouse would make the most sense. None of their drivers are under contract with the Chevrolet brand currently at the moment right now. And I think that you'll see Trackhouse be one of the teams to switch over. I think whatever the new name for TJ Pusher's team's going to be, I think they're one of the teams that will also likely switch over to the Dodge brand going into 2026 or 27. And I think that you may also see a team like Kaulig switch over, and this could open up the opportunity for a new team to come in as well. But one team that we've been honing in on as a potential candidate that could switch over to Dodge or Ram program and could make a comeback is GMS Racing. There was a post that kind of went under the radar that I kind of wanted to talk about. GMS Race Cars, which of course is formerly GMS Racing, they have a Twitter account that just surfaced in April. And there's been a lot of talk that GMS Racing could be bringing back their Truck Series program for the 2026 season. They're one of the teams that's been linked over there. There's been no announcement on who the driver is going to be. We have heard Cletus Farley's name mentioned as a possibility. Cletus has, however, denied the rumors and has claimed that those rumors are not entirely true at this point. And apparently Tim Kunickis has said that they have not entirely made an official decision. They haven't really talked to Cletus more than once at this point, but they are looking at the ambassador role at the moment. We had heard that Nice Motorsports might be an option for that, but Nice has confirmed that they are not switching over. They're staying with Chevy. So GMS Racing is the most likely possibility. GMS Racing, of course, had a lot of success in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series for many, many years. They won the Truck Championship in 2016 with Johnny Sauter. They also won the championship in 2020 with Sheldon Creed and won a lot of races with a lot of different drivers, including current NASCAR Cup champions Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. And of course, like I mentioned, they won championships with Sheldon Creed, had a lot of success with Zane Smith for a couple years, and they've had a lot of really good drivers part of their program as well. And I think GMS Racing coming back would be huge. They, of course, have not been part of the Truck Series for 2 years. They had a chance to win the championship in 2023 at Grant Enfinger, who had a really good season with that team, but unfortunately came short after a lot of chaos near the end of the event. But I think it would be a massive and a really huge deal if GMS Racing does in fact return to NASCAR in 2026. And I think it'd be a huge deal because they could be potentially that team that maybe finds their way up the cup. I mean, technically they still have technical part ownership of Legacy, but I believe that part of that team is kind of sold off at this point. Maury Gallagher has kind of sold off his side of things at this moment. When the ownership group came in to that organization, the Nighthead Capital team came in and took over part ownership of that. I don't really think that he has much say at all at this point over at Legacy Motor Club, and Jimmy's kind of taken full ownership at this rate. But I think that GMS Racing going over to Dodge would make a lot of sense. One, I think depending on what driver they go with for next year, I think they definitely would have a ton of success, and I think they'd be able to show some really good pace and really, really good speed off the get-go, because usually the factory-supported teams are very, very good. And you got to think about the other question, too. GMS Racing is probably not going to be the only team going over because they want to have around 4 to 6 trucks out there next year. Doorsport is a team that we all would love to see, because I think they'd be pretty successful if they switch over to, Dodge, because they've gone to every manufacturer at this point. But many don't expect that they are going to switch over to Dodge. Many think that they're going to stay with Ford and probably sign at least a little bit of an extension with Ford going forward, despite the fact they have had not much success in the last year or so. The only reason they went to Ford was so that Haley Deegan could get the chance and opportunity to race in the Truck Series on a full-time basis. After, of course, their former team at the time was David Gillen Racing, they switched over to Toyota and became Tricon Garage, and look at the success they've had with Corey Heim as of late. In general, though, I think GMS Racing switching over would make a lot of sense. It would be a team that would be perfectly fit for the Dodge brand going forward and the Ram brand going forward in the future. They could maybe go to Xfinity down the road if Dodge comes back. I think that's going to be the interesting thing, too, is to see what other teams will get in there and potentially switch. So we'll see what happens, and we'll continue to follow the story as time progresses and goes on. But again, I think there's a very good chance and a really strong possibility that GMS Racing will be bringing back their NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series program and will likely maybe have at least 1 or 2 trucks. We'll have to wait and see, but it's big because more money's going to be coming in, and I think it's going to lead to a lot of good things going forward in the future. I maybe throw Daniel Suarez's name in the mix as well, so I think Suarez would be a really good option for that team, who we'll be talking about here in just a second. I'll be interested to see, though, what teams and what drivers will be going over to the GMS Racing program in the not-so-distant future. Going to be a fun story to follow as time progresses and goes on, and as the rest of the truck silly season progresses and rides continue to fill up. And now we're going to head on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Daniel Suarez. Now, we all know that Daniel Suarez will, of course, not be returning to Trackhouse Racing for the 2026 season. He released a statement earlier this week and also on Tuesday, and also Justin Marks and the team of Trackhouse Racing also released their own statement as well, confirming this detail for the 2026 year. Now, earlier this weekend, Daniel Suarez was speaking to the media about his departure from Trackhouse Racing, and he basically said that, one, he was not being listened to from Trackhouse Racing overall, and felt that basically he's known about this for the last 4 or 5 months. Apparently, they kept him in the dark and told him that he could not go and talk to other teams until the contract clause ended. I believe that contract only became available on July 1st. He's apparently known this basically since the end of last year and pretty much knew it at the beginning of this year that he would not be returning to Trackhouse Racing. He basically said that it was like being there, but you're part of a really, really bad relationship being part of a team and organization. And he felt that Ross Chastain has also been a really good asset to the team, but he felt like his voice was not being heard and he was not being listened to. And I think Trackhouse Racing may unfortunately have a really good reason for Daniel Suarez. I think Daniel Suarez is a really good dude, and from what a lot of people say, Daniel Suarez is a great person. But Daniel Suarez, let's be real and honest, has struggled over there at Trackhouse Racing this season. He had to have a really, really good year if they were even going to reconsider this decision and keep him on with the team. And Daniel Suarez, let's be honest, is sitting like 28 for 29 for points. I think he has gotten surpassed by SVG and the Sandys, and Shane Van Gisbergen just picked up a second win of the season, and he's already tied. Basically, he has more wins now on his all-time career being SVG than Daniel Suarez is. And Shane Van Gisbergen has only made 33 career NASCAR Cup Series starts. Daniel Suarez, meanwhile, has 2 wins. Suarez is a serviceable driver, but he's not someone that's going to take it to the next level. He's done that, of course, with other teams like Joe Gibbs Racing, for example. JGR, he struggled over there in Cup competition after getting promoted. He won the championship with them in the Xfinity Series, but he got promoted up, and he really didn't do much the first 2 years. He replaced Carl Edwards in short notice, and I think that affected him in a big way, but he wasn't prepared. Then he went to SHR and was good in 2020. 2019, but didn't set the world on fire. Then he went to GOAT and struggled completely, unfortunately missed the Daytona 500 that year. And then, of course, he went over to, Trackhouse, and he was the number one driver in 21, and he got that win at Sonoma, but he's been overshadowed by Ross Chastain. And the guy that's likely going to replace him next year, that being Connor Zilisch, he's a driver that's more of an asset currently at the moment for the team than Daniel Suarez is, in my opinion. So now the big question is, where does Daniel Suarez end up in 2026? Because he's going to have to find a ride at this moment. There are some that suggested he goes to Kaulig Racing and the number 10 car, and I think the 10 car would certainly be interesting. The problem is, for a lot of Suarez fans, is that it's expected that Ty Dillon is probably going to sign a contract extension with the team. They're working on an extension currently at the moment with Ty Dillon, and to be fair to Ty Dillon, he's been serviceable in that car. He's running about as good as Daniel Hemrick drove in that car last year, and I don't know if Suarez could do better than Ty Dillon at this point. I think that Suarez is a better driver, but also Ty Dillon brings sponsorship and funding, and again, they're working on that contract extension currently at the moment. So I do not expect Suarez to go over to Kaulig Racing. Some have suggested the number 7 car for Spire Motorsports, and while I do understand the number 7 car might be an okay option at this point, Justin Haley is someone that deserves a little bit more respect. He's had a rough season so far, there's no denying that, and I know there's a lot of hype around him, but he's been put in a really bad position in general. Let's remember, he lost his crew chief Ronnie Childers, he lost his car chief Cheddar Smith, who went over to work with Ty Gibbs. Ronnie Childers has been gone now for a while, and then all of his pit crew members he originally had went over to Kyle Larson early in the season. He got Kyle Larson's pit crew from last year, and it started this season. So I feel like that as much as Justin Haley's had a bad year, I think he deserves another year. Now, if Justin Haley struggles for another season, then I think that could be something to watch out for. So those are really the only cup options at this point. What about the Xfinity Series? Because now you got to look at the Xfinity Series going into next year. Well, I think there are some really good options that could be available. Some have mentioned the number 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing or the number 18. I think that Daniel Suarez is a much better driver than William Swalch, but the problem is William Swalch does bring a little more funding than Suarez does at this point with the Starkey sponsorship and his dad helping a lot with the sponsorship front at this moment. So I do believe that may be an option for a part-time run with that team, but I'm not sure about a full-time run. Some have suggested Kaulig Racing. I think the 11 car would actually be a pretty good option for Daniel Suarez, and I think that would not be a bad option to go through. But do you want to go to a team that's not been super good in Xfinity this year? I mean, Christian Atkins has been all right in the team, but Josh Williams has been having some okay runs, but has not been setting the world on fire. And then, of course, you have Daniel Dye, who's actually had some good runs with the team, but I don't think Kaulig Racing is a top-level team. So I don't know if Suarez is going to want to go down and race in Xfinity. It could lead to a comp option in the future, but I don't know if that's what Suarez wants to do at this point. So where I think Daniel Suarez is likely going to end up next year is going to be with Junior Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Basically a trade-off. With, like I said, you're expecting to see Zilisch take over the 99, so Zilisch then would move up to the 99, and then you would see Suarez go over maybe to the number 9 or go over to the number 88 next year. Remember, he drove the number 9 for Junior Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and had a really impressive and great performance with that team and was able to win with them at Mexico City. He also has done very, very good with the organization in the 1 or 2 starts that he's ran. And that would be a top-level organization to go through. Daniel Suarez, like I mentioned before, he may not be the best top-of-the-line NASCAR Cup Series driver, but he was a really good Xfinity driver. He won the Xfinity Series championship back in 2016. He won 3 races that year and put together a really good season in general. And he was going to be there in 2017 for probably going up the Cup in 2018. I think that he would be an absolutely really good option for the seat. And I think that if we're looking for that veteran experience, considering Justin Allgaier, we're not entirely sure how much longer Allgaier is going to be at the team in the future. I think it makes a lot of sense to bring someone in like Daniel Suarez, who can have a lot of success with you, who probably can contend for a championship. I could see Suarez being that Justin Allgaier driver where he goes out there and wins a bunch of races, or being like Elliott Sadler, who contends for championships in the Xfinity Series. Like, that same thing, I feel like Suarez's career is kind of similar to Elliott Sadler's. I think also, another thing to look at too, if Junior Motorsports does, let's say in the future, they do kind of decide, let's have a full-time Cup program in the future, I think Suarez could be the perfect candidate for that, considering he brings sponsorship to the table. You wouldn't need a ton of funding for them at that moment. If you have Quicker Say come on and some of these other companies come on, you would have the perfect group to work with at that point. So I think likely he goes to Junior Motorsports, and he'd be working Marty Lindley, who is a really, really good crew chief. I think this is where Daniel Suarez is likely going to end up next year. I don't see him going to Cup next year, unless it's a part-time stint with a team. I just think, especially right now, all the full-time Cup rides are going to be available, are going to be gone at this point. Now, he could stay down in Xfinity for a year and look at Cup in 2027, because 2026 free agency is going to be wide open. We're still worrying about what's going to happen with those 2311 racing cars. Kyle Larson's in a contract year. Alex Bowman's in a contract year. Kyle Busch is in a contract year. Austin Dillon is in a contract year. Josh Berry's in a contract year next year. I believe that a couple guys from JGR, Denny Hamlin, who's expected to return to Joe Gibbs, I think he'll probably be in a contract year. Briscoe, I think, will also be in a contract year next year, and other drivers in the Cup Series will be in contract years. I just think right now at this moment, though, I'm leaning toward Daniel Suarez going over to Junior Motorsports next year. I think that's where he'll end up next season, so I think that's where he'll be able to find the most success for him in his NASCAR Xfinity career, and I think he'll have a lot of success. I think he goes to Junior Motorsports in 2026. So, that is going to be today's Law NASCAR News and Motorsports News episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Turn notifications on so if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's get below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Where do you think Daniel Suarez ends up next year in NASCAR? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what do you think about GMS potentially returning the truck competition next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, we're going to see another NASCAR news. We're going to talk about all the news we've missed over the last day or so. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we are going to have either the entrance video or the schedule predictions for 2026. And then, of course, on Wednesday, we'll have a NASCAR news video. We'll have the Xfinity Series race picks for Sonoma. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Cup race picks for Sonoma for the Toyota Save Mark 350 and the paint scheme video as well. Then Friday, we'll have probably reactions to NASCAR Xfinity Series qualifying dropping and a NASCAR news video as well. We got content coming out. People like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carlos, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Ryan Preece, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Cleveland Farm, Connor Zilch, Junior Motorsports, other people like Brad Keselowski, Riley Herbst, all the good stuff, Tony Breidinger, Frankie Muniz, Matt DiBenedetto, you name it. We'll talk about all the good stuff on the channel in the coming days and weeks as the season continues and heading into Sonoma. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.